Welcome to the Brother Henry and You Show. Today you will be inspired and motivated, uplifted and edified through the Word of God. Thank you for joining us today. Welcome to the Brother Henry and You Show. I am your host, Henry Harris. Thank you for joining today. On today's broadcast, I want to talk about what you do is important. If I've ever taught on a message that was inspiring and uplifting, I would have to say that this would be one of the most important messages that I've ever expounded on. And I want to talk about that with you today. What you do is important. We all feel the need to be useful. I believe many of us want to feel like we're accepted. Many of us want to feel like that what we do in life will have some sort of meaning. While what we do is important, many often feel discouraged because what they do is going unnoticed. And I know this because I've experienced it myself. We have a lot of people out there in the world, not only in the world, but even within the body of Christ. They're doing many great things, but it's going unnoticed. Nobody's recognizing it. They're not getting any type of praise or applaud. But that's okay, because what you do is important. The Bible tells us in Philippians chapter 1, verse 16, it says, "He who started a good work in you will complete it." Now, everybody has a gift. Everybody has a talent. But it does no use for you just to sit there and not do nothing at all. I have a talent in music, filming, speaking. These are just gifts that God has given me. But what I'm trying to say is, if you have a talent, use it. Never feel like that you have nothing to bring to the table. Never feel like that you have nothing to offer. Never feel like that nobody's paying attention and nobody's listening. Because let me tell you something. Your feelings can be wrong. And we don't live by how we feel. We live by reality. The reality is that even though you feel like you're not important, I want you to know that what you do is important. Everything that you do is important today. If you are that person that find yourself discouraged, let me start off with a few questions that will cause you to think right quickly. Number one, why do you do what you do? If you feel like you're not important, why do you do what you do? Number two, are you passionate about what you do? Number three, why do you feel what you do is not important? Now, I can use this for an example. I'm a pianist. When I first started playing the piano, I was going with the emotions. I was just playing because I wanted to play. But over time, I developed a passion for it. It's something that I wanted to do. I feel it's important not only to me, but what I can offer to others as well. It's dangerous to be living in this world where you feel like that you have no meaning in life, that you feel like you have nothing to bring to the world, that you have nothing to offer. Each and every one of us has something to offer. In God's eyes, there's no certain ranks. There's no, well, this person is above that one, and this person has a better gift than that one. No, we all have something that we can bring to the table that will not only be a blessing to us, but it will be a blessing to other people. If you're going to do something, be passionate about what you do. I hear people now, oh, I hate pastoring. I can't stand it. And even in the secular world, I don't want to be a doctor. I don't want to be a judge. I don't want to be this or that. Why are you doing it? If that's not your calling, if that's not what you want to do, switch lanes and go do something that you're going to like. If you're doing something that you find yourself feeling less important or less than, go do something where you'll feel much more important. There comes a time where you have to have confidence in yourself. Paul said, I think myself happy. You may never get a pat on the back. You may never get told, good job, Henry. But you know what? Sometimes you have to look at yourself in the mirror and say, I'm going to be a blessing to people today. What I do is important. Will I get a pat on the back or will I get rewarded for it? what I have to say and what I do is important. So you must realize that if you're one of those people that are watching and you feel like that what you're doing is going unnoticed and you're never getting any recognition, I got some good news for you today. God sees and rewards in secret. Matthew chapter 6 verse 4 tells us, give your gifts in private, and your Father who sees everything will reward you in secret. Many times we're after the greatest. We want to go after the biggest thing, but sometimes we forget that which is in front of us. Sometimes it's good to tell people, motivate people, hey, what you're doing is important. Every day that I live by this motto. It was written by Dr. Maya Angelou. She says, people may forget what you didn't, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. And I know this to be true because even over the years, those seasons in my life where I feel like I had nothing to bring to the table, I had nothing to offer, you know, people tend to forget you, and that's okay. But they'll never forget how you made them feel. So I live by that motto every day, that what I do is important. What you do is important. We have to understand that just because others who may have greater influence, and even in ministry, they may have greater influence, or by doing big things, doesn't make them more important than you are. Like I said earlier, there's no certain ranks. This person ain't more important than that one. We're all the same. God always takes pleasure in the unnoticed and in the small. The Bible tells us to despise not small beginnings. The Bible also says in Luke chapter 9, verse 48, it says, Luke 9:48, it says, then he said, whoever welcomes this little child in my name welcomes me. And whoever welcomes me welcomes the one who sent me. For it is the one who is least among you is the greatest. And this is just me personally. I don't care about crowds. I don't care about, you know, all the big stuff or the latest, greatest thing that's going on right now. Now, this is just me. I don't care about the greatest. I care about the least of these. You want to be great? Be small. You want to be great? Be the least. For he that is least among you is the greatest. God takes pleasure in those who are the least. God takes pleasure in those who feel like that what they do is not important. God takes pleasure in those who feel like what they have nothing to offer or bring to the table. God takes pleasure in those type of people. Sometimes we get so carried away with big and we forget what's in front of us. What you do is just as important than the next person. Everyone has something to bring. Everyone. The truth is, everyone who's ever succeeded in life and everyone who's ever felt like that what they do is not important had to go through some form of rejection. I'm going to say some names that many of you may be familiar with. But these people had to go through rejection. Rejection was their stepping stone to success. There were many people who were discouraged along the way, but they did not allow that rejection and that hurt and that pain to stop them. They didn't allow that feeling of feeling like they're not important to stop them. Let me give you a few names. Walt Disney, the guy who created Mickey Mouse. He was told that he lacked imagination and did not have any good ideas. Think about that. The guy who's done Mickey Mouse, my daughter's favorite character, Mickey Mouse, he was rejected. He was told he lacked imagination. Think about that. Man, that just blows my mind when I think about that. Elvis Presley was told that he'll be better off back to his job as a truck driver, but instead he pursued his career. They told him, oh, you ain't gonna make it, you're not important, you're better off being a truck driver. He's one of the most famous stars I know today. Even though he's passed away, he still has a great influence in the world. Steven Steinberg was turned down 3 times in the School of Theater, and he didn't take no for an answer. Steven Steinberg, think about that. Oprah Winfrey was extremely poor. She was raped. She suffered countless tragedies, but she did not let that stop her. One of the most richest women in the world today. One of my favorites, Tyler Perry. Her lure. I love Tyler Perry. He was homeless, living in his car. Couldn't get his shows off the ground. He used to talk about how he used to take his H&R Block refund to set up these shows, and only a few people would show up. So, and he ended up poor because he invested all his time and money in that. Now he's one of the biggest and highest paid people in Hollywood. So these, among many other people who were rejected, who were shunned, who were pushed away, ended up succeeding because they would not take no for an answer. And that's what I want to tell you today. Don't take no for an answer, and don't let nobody discourage you. If you set your mind to it, you can do it. You want to be a lawyer, you can do it. You want to be a nurse, you can do it. Whatever you set your mind to, nothing can stop you. No force can stop you. Don't let nobody make you feel inferior about yourself. Don't make anybody allow you to feel like you're insecure about yourself. If you set your mind to it, and if it's something that you really want to do, you can do it, because what you do is important. Sometimes we find ourselves discouraged because we are putting so much effort in being seen and in being noticed. It will happen in God's timing. Sometimes people won't invite you to the table. I'm just being honest. Sometimes you won't be recognized for the great things that you do, but that's okay. Don't put yourself out there. Don't push it out there, because that can cause even much more damage for you. I believe that sometimes God has us in hiding for a reason. There's a certain reason. The reason why is because God knows what's best for you. I hope somebody's getting something out of today's message. You may feel like that you're under the radar. I can say that. I feel like that many times. Do you ever feel like you're under the radar? Nobody's paying attention. You may feel like nobody will give you a break. You know why? Because you are in hiding now. Maybe it's not the time. Maybe God is trying to prep you. Maybe God is trying to prepare you for something much more greater than yourself. Stay in hiding. Don't force it. Don't push it. Don't try to, oh, I want to be recognized. I want to be noticed. Maybe it's not for that book to be noticed right now. Maybe it's not for that video to go viral. It's not about that at the end of the day. Just know, stay in your lane. Stay in your commission. Do whatever you feel like you have to do, because what you do is important. Everything that you do is important. Let me explain from you my own personal experience, why I felt I wasn't important. And it's just two things. Number one, inferior and intimidated. I always felt this way. How did this come about? Because what I used to do is I used to compare my ministry with other ministries. How come they got a bigger crowd? How come more people watch their videos? All these things I started to become validated by the people. And we all know, and I've said it quite a few times, our validation comes from God and God alone, nobody else. But I started to compare myself to other people, and what happened is I started to be intimidated by other ministries. I started to feel inferior. I started to feel like, well, maybe what I'm doing is not important because nobody's paying attention to me. So I was intimidated by their success and the people that they reach and so forth. I always felt like that they got more recognition. So apparently I'm just chopped liver. I'm serious. I felt that way at one time. But that leads into the danger of comparison. You don't have to compare yourself to nobody else. You know why? Because Psalms chapter 139 verse 14 says, you are fearfully and wonderfully made. So I want you to declare that today. To those that are watching now, you feel rejected. You feel like nobody will give you a break. You feel like you're an outcast. You feel you haven't been invited to the table yet. You need to remind yourself, I am fearfully and wonderfully made. I am enough. I don't have to compare to anybody else. I am the original, and what I do is just as important. Come on, say it. I want you to say it again. I want you to get this in your spirit. Say, I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Say, I am enough. I don't have to compete or compare with nobody else or what anybody else does. I am the original. I don't have to copy after no one. And what I do is just as important. Never compare yourself to anyone. Be yourself and stay within your lane. It's very dangerous when you start comparing what you do to other people, because that opens the door, or at least it did for me, feeling inferior and intimidated either by them as a person or by what they did. So I hope this was a blessing to you today. Don't go around discouraged, feeling like what you do is not important. What you do is very important. God takes pleasure in the small. God takes pleasure in those who are unnoticed, those who are not getting recognition. He says, I will reward you in the open. You know, as I go to a close, I thought about Jesus when he was talking to his disciples. They were talking about fasting, and Jesus said, when you fast, don't broadcast it and so forth. And but the Bible also says that many people did broadcast it, and they let everybody know I'm fasting and all this. You know what Jesus said about that? They got their reward. Where did their reward come from? It came from the people, because the people praised him. The people gave them recognition. Good job, you went on a 40-day fast. That's great. They got their reward because they were noticed. They felt some sense of importance and pride about themselves. But you know what Jesus says about that? He says when you fast, he says don't be like the hypocrites that announce it and stream it in the street that I'm fasting and so forth. He said because if you do it in secret, your Father will reward you in the open. So we can apply this same principle to us today, that many of us, we feel like we're not getting that recognition. We feel like that we're not important. But here's the truth. God says he sees everything in secret, and he will reward you. And when he rewards you, everybody will know about it.